Hi everybody, this is Nick Tan. Welcome to a very short video, very informal video about how I paint my miniatures. I've had a lot of people asking me from the local gaming community as to how I go about painting my miniatures. At this point in time, I'm playing the Walking Dead miniatures game that is put out by Nique Games. I'll be talking about painting the minis. Unfortunately, I've already painted up the core set. So I can't use the core set to actually demonstrate the various steps and stages as to how I paint the thing, but I bought the... and we keep buying and buying stuff, it's terrible. I bought the scenery booster, so I've got like some cars and stuff like that, and already I've painted most of them up, but I've got one more truck or pickup or lorry or something like that unpainted yet, so I'm going to use that to demonstrate, or rather walk through with you the whole process about how to paint the miniatures. So let's go straight into how to paint up the truck. So the scenery booster came with 4 of these vehicles. As you can tell, I'm almost done. The first truck over here, and the other 2 cars as well. Just one of the trucks left. So this is what the mini looks like. I haven't decided to go with like a blue or a yellow. I'm going to start first by priming the miniature. Alright, so this is the primed truck. I didn't do it that evenly. I basically used a spray kind of primer. I prime most of my miniatures using white, but it really depends on the main color. If I'm painting like a very light color, I prefer to use a white primer. The primer is just basically to stick to the miniature. If you can tell here, I didn't prime it, but if you try to paint your paint onto this surface, it's not going to stick very well. The primer will serve as a surface for your paint to adhere to slightly better. Before I prime the miniature, what I'll do is also give the miniature a light scrub with an old toothbrush and also some dishwashing liquid, just to remove any like oils or any dirt or anything like that. Just a little note when you're using sprays, I normally try to spray from a good distance to get a very fine mist of spray onto the mini, because the last thing you want to do is to bring your spray can too close, and then when you start spraying, it's going to come out very thick and it's going to build up inside all of these the detail that is inside here, and so when the paint dries, you're basically not, going to lose all that detail. This is quite a big mini, so it's not so obvious, but if you're going to paint like a small, like for example the figures from The Walking Dead, you can easily lose detail on the face or things like that. It's always much better to do multiple coats. I normally do 2 or 3 maybe. So that is the primed miniature, and we're now going to go into the base coat just to block out the main colors. I haven't decided maybe if I want to go with a blue or yellow, but I am leaning towards the yellow. I'll just do the base coat really quickly and I will come back and talk a little bit about that. And we are back. Alright, so I've just done up a very simple color scheme here for the truck. I've decided to go with the yellow, obviously. It's nothing fancy, just very basic base coat kind of paint. Again, one thing about painting onto your minis is to ensure that you use thinned down paint, not too thick, because again, if you just splat, whatever the term is, paint directly from the pot, what's going to happen is you are going to have the paint inside these little areas, the detail, and it's going to be too thick in there. And what's going to happen is you will find that when the paint dries, again you will lose all the detail there. Make sure you go with thin paint and just do 2 or 3 coats, and just to get a nice even coverage. I mean, try to be as neat as possible. In this case, it doesn't really have to be that neat, because at the end of it, we are going to make this look really beat up and dirty and stuff like that. So it doesn't really have to be that neat, but I think it's good practice to just make sure that you get it as neat as possible. Okay, also just a point about the darker areas over here. I'm not sure you can see this, but over at the top over here, I've given a very light dry brush. Okay, it's a very light dry brush, just to give it a bit of a more metallic kind of a look, just prior to the wash. I think that brings up a little bit of the details. So on this door, I decided to paint it a different color than the rest. I think that gives it a bit more of an old kind of a look. Again, also a little bit of dry brush with some silver, lead belcher actually to be exact, just to give it a, show a little bit of that damage. All in all, I am pretty alright with how this looks, I think. I'm gonna go ahead and do the next step, which is a wash. And we are back from the wash. If you don't know, a wash is basically a very high pigment and diluted rather, kind of paint. What it does is that it darkens all the recesses. Okay, so all the lines that you see all get filled in with the wash. So it basically darkens the recesses. You see all the little details start to come up. But the other issue is that it will darken the entire model. It becomes looking very dirty and stuff, which is fine because that is exactly what we want. So there are many pre-made washers out there that you can get. Some of the washers I feel are quite harsh. So if you apply them neat from the bottle, it is really quite dark. So what I tend to do is I like to dilute them just a little bit. I find that with that consistency, it being diluted, it gives me an easier time when I try to spread it all over the miniature as well. So I'll be right back after I do the highlights. Alright, so we are almost there, almost done with this this model. Back from highlighting, the basic concept is to pick out the edges that light would most likely hit. I always kind of assume that we're looking at it from like a 45-degree kind of angle, like this kind of angle, and then I would just basically paint over all the raised areas that light is most likely going to be hitting the miniature. Okay, so I'll pick out all the high spots. Like you notice here, the edges of the metallic parts I've just highlighted back up to a bright silver. Same with the top parts over here. Alright, these two knobs over here. I just put a little bit of brighter yellow on top. We are almost done. So this is the last bit. After this, I'm going to be doing the really beat up effects, the rust and the scratches and things like that. So we'll be right back after we do that. So I figured I'll give you a little bit of an idea about how I do the main highlights. What I do is I do a bit of dry brushing. I'm just going to lightly do a dry brush around the miniature, around the edges, the raised parts that most likely where metal will start showing. Okay, especially along the edges, the high parts of the the dents. Okay, so just picking up on the raised parts over here, and already you can see that the dent that was part of the miniature is already become more pronounced, and it's become a little bit more reflective. So I think of the dry brush, this portion of dry brushing, as more of just picking up on the main areas that I want to have that kind of effect. Alright, over here maybe I have a little bit there, so you can see there's a bit of like a scratch effect over here, and it is really entirely more or less up to you how you want this part to be. It's very easy actually to go overboard with this. So with the first color, I tend to just try and pick up the corners or the main edges of the mini. I think more or less this first color will do. You can see already that starts to look a little bit better. The front, the damaged areas over here. Alright, and the edge over here as well, you can see that. Yeah. So after that, I'll be switching to a brighter shade of silver, and I'll be going over a little bit more on the raised areas. Okay, so that will add another level of highlight as well. And in addition to dry brushing, I'll be doing something else after this, which I will show you. Okay, so next up, I'll be using a sponge. Alright, this sponge is it's nothing. It's just sponge basically. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to apply this to some of the edges as well, but with paint. I'll put a bit of paint on the sponge, and I'm going to dab a little bit of it off, okay, so not to get it too thick. And now you just dab it directly onto the miniature, and what it's going to give you is a very, very nice kind of effect. Okay, so I'll just do a little bit, just a couple here and there, and then I'll let you have a look at how that, you know, what that kind of what look that achieves. Okay, again, very easy to go overboard on this, so try not to. Sometimes less is more. Alright, so I think I'll just do a bit on the inside so that if, you know, people are looking down, they can see some of that as well. Alright, so I'll get a bit of a close-up to show you how that looks. Okay, if I can just focus. And as you can see already that it looks like there are scratch marks. There is rusting along the edges over there. Some parts are a little bit more pronounced. Okay, so that goes all around. Now to top it up, I'll do exactly the same thing again, but with a different color. For that, I like to use something known as Rhinox hide. I don't know, probably not the best color to use for this, or there has to be some kind of a technical paint that will work better. But I like this for this purpose. And just very lightly go along where you want it to look more rusted. Okay, and again, you can already see that with the dabs, the dabbing over here, you can already get an idea of how this will look, right? So these are just some of the things that I do. I'm going to continue finishing up on this, and then I will come right back and show you the finished product. Alright, and that's it. That's the finished miniature. So just show it to you all around a little bit more. So you can see that there is, you know, where it's been dented and beat up and stuff like that. So again, all these things, it's really up to you. It's really up to you entirely how you want to do it. Very easy to go overboard. So again, I stress, you have to really control yourself and not go too overboard on the you know, the scratches and the things like that. So I do hope this really short video has been helpful to you. If you are playing the game, I do hope that, you know, you try to paint, try to give painting your figures and your models a bit of a try, because it is really, really fun. And also, I think the game looks a lot better as well if you actually try to paint up your miniatures. So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed that. So till next time, have fun and good luck with your dice rolls.